working with teaching and pedagogics, the art of teaching, I became acquainted with Kurt Lewin. And Kurt Lewin was one of the Gestalt psychologists in Germany. I realized that the Gestalt approach to teaching and learning was something I liked, and it suited me, it suited my way of being and my way of teaching. And then an important aspect, there is a very important personal aspect to what brought me to Gestalt. I was married to a Swedish woman living in Sweden and with 2 sons, and the youngest of the 2 sons died of leukemia. Now, we had been in family therapy because we were having some difficulties, and when our son died, my wife and I became completely different in our reaction to it. So it ended up that the family therapy ended, of course, because there was no longer the family. I went into personal therapy and began to understand that because of my own background, which is working class, poor Irish, I wasn't very happy in the university where I was teaching, which was a business school for the children of the rich in Sweden. When I got into therapy, I began to realize here's something which is more useful. It's working with people who need support. So then I got the opportunity to join a Gestalt therapy group. So I joined a Gestalt therapy group and realized that yes, I like this approach even more than I thought I did. And I like the work the person is doing, the therapist is doing. And because of my experience as a teacher and so on, I could do this. So I decided I will. I did. So I became a Gestalt therapist. And then I realized that there was also an application for Gestalt in management and leadership and organization. And since I am a guest professor of international management, that appealed to me. I did the Cleveland program and was invited onto the faculty of Cleveland. And so suddenly I had gone from being an academic into being a trainer and group worker from a Gestalt perspective. So I did a PhD and became a doctor at the age of 69. A doctor called, the theme was Gestalt at work, is using Gestalt in a work environment and an international approach. So yeah. If we begin with the German word Gestalt, meaning whole, the whole something, the complete form of something. That means that thinking of the person in terms of everything, not just the mind, not just the body, but everything. Body, mind, soul, whatever. The whole person. And the whole person in the context in which that person lives. Because it's the context that the person is responding to. The environment in which the person lives is what they are trying to deal with. They're trying to live in their social environment. Gestalt for me has become not just a way of working, but a way of being in the world. Understanding that there is more happening around me than I am aware of, and attempting to become more aware of what's happening around me in order to respond to it in a way which is more connected to who I think I am. I think it begins with the notion of awareness. When we are most aware, our contact with the environment is at its most useful to us. So that movement between awareness and contact, plus the fact that we are always in contact, but not always aware. The heart of Gestalt is in moving between always being in contact and not always being aware, and connecting these two things, awareness and contact. To fully experience yourself in terms of your physical reactions, your cognitive interpretation of those, and to see the connection between all of these things, that you are not just only a mind and you're not just only a body, you are the whole thing. We're back to the meaning of the word Gestalt. I'd like to give you the actual event which created this word, unfinished business. Kurt Lewin was an academic and he had doctoral students in Vienna, and there were actually two Russian women. One was Osviankina and the other was Bluma Zygarnik. And they were out having coffee, he and his students. When Lewin went to pay, the waiter came up and looked at them and said, coffee, cappuccino, Americano, cake, small cake, big cake, and just mentioned everything that they had and then gave a price. And Lewin paid. And he walked away and he thought, that was interesting. How did that man remember all of those things? So he went back to the cafe and he said to the waiter, what did we have? And the waiter said, I forget, it's not important now, you've paid. The business was finished, so the memory was gone. So he came back to his students, Zygarnik and Ovsiankina, and said, please create an experiment which will give us a theory on what that waiter did. And the two of them did the same experiment, but they drew different conclusions from it. Zygarnik's conclusion was that if a task is not completed, the energy to complete the task will remain, and the person will never rest until they've completed the task. And Ovsiankina came to the conclusion that we remember things that are not finished. We forget things that are finished because they're not useful to us anymore. So she was concerned about the memory, and Zygarnik was concerned about the energy to complete something. So the whole idea of the unfinished Gestalt, or the unfinished business, comes from the energy that we will invest in completing something that for us isn't really finished. What I will use both with a client and with a group and with an organization is when somebody says something is finished, I will check whether I feel restful or restless. In other words, if it's restful, then maybe it is finished. If I feel restless, then maybe there's some more energy there, and I need to look for it. And sometimes I just have to say, I'm not sure you're finished. For the person to say, well, maybe you're right, and we start all over again. And the thing is, only the client or the group or the organization can complete the Gestalt. I can only make them aware of the fact that it may need some more work. But I don't close it for them. I raise awareness and it's for them to close it themselves. In the Gestalt world, we talk about focused and unfocused attention. Now, unfocused attention is when we're taking in everything that's around you, but not in particular, in general. Now, you hear noises, but you don't hear words. You hear music, but you don't hear a particular melody. It's there. And then focused attention is when something becomes attractive to you, and you focus all of your attention on that. Well, I'm going to listen to that piece of music and let everything else fade into background. And the technical word for this is figure and background. The figure is that which catches your attention with the rest in the background. Well, that's one of the aspects of awareness. I need to become aware of what I do with my attention. Do I simply take in everything, or do I focus? Do I decide in advance to focus, or do I let what is important attract my attention? Is it something I do, or something the object of my attention is doing to me? Is there a connection between us? So it's raising awareness about that process so that I can decide to keep it or change it. My own personal view that where children are concerned, it's always best to let them find their own way. And for us as parents, to pay attention to the choices they are making. And perhaps to talk to them about it. To raise their awareness about the choices that they are making, the things they are paying attention to. And my experience with my own children was, anytime I tried to interfere in what they were paying attention to, it was a failure. So it was more interesting to begin watch what it was and let them know that I saw that and let them choose themselves. Certainly, since I live in Sweden, very high level, 49% of all marriages end in divorce. And what interests me often is this an individual choice, or is it caused by environmental factors? Are there other things going on in society which make this the obvious choice or option? And I come from a country, Ireland, where divorce doesn't occur almost. It's very, very rare, mainly because of the Catholic Church. But still, it's unusual for people even to separate. I think it's difficult to deal with couples without dealing with the social environment the couple lives in. Is there a social environment which accepts separation or divorce, or is there a social environment that expects people to stay together, especially if there are children concerned? And there is a strong social pressure not to divorce. My youngest sister, for example, is in the middle of a very difficult separation which could become a divorce. And she is very able to admit that because she has 6 children, she knew at some stage, I'm going to divorce this man, but not yet. And I've asked her, how did that affect your relationship with this man? And how did it affect your relationship with your children? That I'm only staying with this man because of you. And she still hasn't really answered that question, because it's a tough question. I mean, I do some couples therapy, And the first question I always ask is, before we start the therapy, have either of you ever thought of divorce? Because I need to know that if I'm to work with you as a couple, what is your investment in this couple? How strongly do you feel about the survival of this couple as a couple? Or do you care about it? Because that will impact the couples therapy. Family for me is parents and children, where the parents are happy enough together and the children are happy enough with the parents, and they can live in the same space without too much trouble. And every now and then, and actually enjoy being together. So I know when I was married with the two children, I always enjoyed when we had dinner together. That was an important part of the day for me, to have dinner together. Yeah, it would keep me happy, and if I was happy, my wife might be happy, and so on. So, to me, basically, it's parents and children in some kind, enough harmony for it to function.